money. Summer stories we are telling because although a lot of Native American stories are winter telling stories, you tell those stories only in the winter. And those are a time when people gather together and have time to tell these stories. But for me, it was summertime when there was time for stories. My mother was a teacher, and we were always busy during the school year. In the summertime, we had time to visit. We had time to go back to her home in Illinois and visit grandfathers and aunts and uncles and cousins, first cousins and second cousins and cousins once and twice removed, and removed so many times that we didn't even know how they were related anymore, but they were definitely cousins. And I loved it because those cousins were kids, and they were people to play with. In Donovan, one of my favorite houses to visit was the Fosters. And I think they were, let's see, Wilma, the mother, was Aunt Nettie's daughter, and Aunt Nettie was a sister, I think, to Uncle Art. And there were 4 kids in the house. Not just 2 like at my house, but 4. And one my age. And the house was great. One night when I stayed overnight with Sarah, Sarah's mother worked too. And she was the postmistress of this little town of 300. So in the morning, we got up and fixed our own breakfast, and we had coffee, which I never had. And I think Sarah even got out the schnapps, which we might have either smelled or had a taste of. Peppermint schnapps. Downstairs at the Fosters, there was, of course, a cellar, like in every house in the small town in Illinois. This one had a bed in it. Why? Why is there a bed down here? Well, in case of a tornado. Jack, the father, Jack Foster, had been in an accident. Well, he'd been in a tornado, actually. He was driving a school bus. The kids were all off the bus, and the school bus had been picked up by a tornado. That was the tornado story of the Fosters. Now, I don't know if he was hurt or not, because I never heard that part. But when I knew him, he was fine. But they had that tornado shelter ready. We'd also go to visit my Aunt Ella, who lived across the state in Canton, Illinois. Aunt Ella was the best aunt. She had a whole closet full of board games for kids. And they always had kittens. And in the front yard, there was a carousel horse on a pedestal. And that was courtesy of my Uncle Howard Bowen, who collected things like that, as well as old farm machinery, which he also repaired. In the back pasture, there was a real live horse named Fancy Queen, whom we got to ride bareback. And Ella also had a tornado story. They had lived on a farm before they moved to the outskirts of Canton. And one day on the farm, when my cousin Dolores was 4 years old, and Aunt Lizzie, that's the aunt who's most prominent in my mind, my great aunt. And this was Aunt Ella. When Aunt Ella was pregnant with Benny Joe, who was a cousin who was 2 years older than I was, she was in the house folding laundry, and Dolores was in the room with her playing. And it was really hot. Like it's hot outside here. Hot. And then suddenly the light in the room changed. Storm clouds had come up. And the light changed more, that greenish light and that quiet. Aunt Ella looked out the window, and she could see a funnel cloud coming right toward the house. There wasn't time to go to the basement. She put Dolores down on a little cot in the room on the mattress, and she put herself over Dolores to protect her. And then the wind hit, and it picked up the house. And there is a vacuum in the center of a cyclone. There's no air, no oxygen. And they lost consciousness, both of them. When the house was set down and Ella regained her consciousness, Uncle Howard, who'd been out in the field working, was running toward the house. And Dolores, 4 years old, was covered with blood. When Howard got in the house, he and Ella searched Dolores looking for the cut, but there was none. It was then they realized that it was Aunt Ella that was cut, a cut in her leg that had, of course, bled on Dolores. They were both okay. The house had been moved off its foundation, and they did not move back into that house. But Aunt Ella always said that the worst thing about that, even though they had survived, which was the best thing, but the worst thing was that, well, my Aunt Ella was a large woman, and her clothing had been strewn all over the countryside. So she said for weeks, when anybody came to visit, they would bring a pair of her underdrawers back, neatly folded, and say, "Ella, I think these belong to you." Both Aunt Ella and my mother liked to end their stories, even the serious ones, with a laugh.